what we need to talk about is something that, well, let me start here. Whether or not we should have gone in and entered a war or done a military strike this weekend, now been answered. It doesn't matter. You heard the news just as I did on Saturday. The question is over. It's done. We now have a whole lot more to think about. We can go back and argue whether we should have been here or not. It doesn't matter anymore. We're here. So my goal today is really to try to equip you with everything, all of the information that you need. We're doing this together as I am searching for the answers myself, debating on, what happens next, what happens now. Did the president have, really, really good intel on this? I will tell you this. What our military did was absolutely amazing. And he is the only president in the last 25 years that has actually taken care of Iran. Every single president said they would strike Iran. They would not allow them to have. But he is the only one that did it. And he is the only one that I think has the balls to do it. And I spoke to some people in the B2 program this weekend. And I will tell you, what they did was far, far beyond what I think most people understand. But if we're going to do this accurately, let me lay out all of the cards on the table. It's not a justification, for the strike or one way or another, because the White House authorized it. It is over. We just need a few facts before we, move forward on our conversation. What happened over the weekend? So let's take a quick look at the past. First, let's go back to 1979. I don't know. How do you characterize what's been going on? I was about to say, it's silent, but if you were one of the 66 Americans held hostage by the Islamic regime in 1979, it wasn't very silent for you. It also wasn't a silent war for the 17 Americans that were killed in the 1983 embassy bombing in Beirut. Nor was it silent for the 241 American servicemen that were killed in the 83 bombing of the Marine barracks. 1984, 2 more American killed. 1996, 19 U.S. airmen killed at the Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia. All of these attacks were traced back to the Iranian regime with Iranian support. And the list of attacks and U.S. body count goes on and on and on. Dozens killed in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2020, all with Iranian support. Hundreds killed in Iraq from 2003 to 2011 with Iranian support. The plots and the assassination attempts, the kidnappings on U.S. soil in 2011, 21, and 2024. The fact is, we have already been at war since 1979. It's just that nobody has ever called it that, and nobody knew how to fight it. Past presidential administrations have tried everything from declaring, an axis of evil, and Iran is part of it, to massive international nuclear weapons treaties. They have involved the whole region, covert operations, taking us back out of the international treaties. And then, honestly, in the most bizarre thing I've ever heard, Barack Obama just delivering like pallets of cash in the middle of the night on an airport runway in Iran. And none of it has worked. And, I don't know if you're like me or not. I can't predict Americans anymore. I have no idea what Americans are thinking. But if you're like me, right now I am proud of our country and what our military can do and has done. I am very, very nervous about what it means. I think we're at the beginning of something, and it might be, in the next 50 years. We are in a war with Islamists, and I'll go into that later. But we are in the beginning of a 50-year war with Islamists. No question. And it could get bad very quickly. Now, it might not. I don't know, but I have a million questions. Should we be involved in any of this? All around the world. How do we not know that we're not being bamboozled by deep state and intel community again? You know, I go back, I heard Steve Bannon, who's going to be on with me tomorrow, I heard Steve Bannon talk yesterday about how the international intel community, the deep state, has, done it again. And I don't know if that's true, but what he talked about, I know for a fact is true because George Bush told me this when I was in the Oval Office trying to make me feel better. He said, Glenn, no matter what happens, whoever sits in this chair is going to know that he's going to have the same advisors around him, and they're going to give him the same advice, and they'll realize they don't have any other choice but to do exactly what they're doing. And that didn't make me feel better. That said to me, there's deep state long before anybody was talking about deep state. That just really rubbed me the wrong way. So the questions that we all have, there's logic behind all of them. But the strike this weekend did happen, and ignoring the facts of the past will only give us half of our answers. Now, I'm not saying that should justify it in your mind, but you need to know what was going on. Because going in armed only with part of the overall knowledge will do nothing but drive narrative. You have to know all of the facts. And you and I can get plenty of uninformed and biased narratives from any of the cable news shows. I mean, just name one, pick one. But education is what will set us apart. So that is the past. Now here is the present. This is the inside story of our direct attack on the Islamic regime in Iran over the weekend. It was called Operation Midnight Hammer, and it involved about 125 U.S. aircraft. I've heard as many as 175, including multiple B-2 heavy bombers. Now, we only have like 14 B-2 bombers. These things are enormous. They are the best of the best. These pilots are the best of the best. And we had about 12 of them up in the sky. That means, that we should just salute our mechanics that we have in our military. To keep 14, to have 12 of them up and ready to go at a moment's notice is pretty remarkable. These are very complex machines. So they had 12 of them up. Now we know that some of them were headed west towards Guam. We now know that this was subterfuge. It was misdirection. Everybody was paying attention to, the bombers heading west. They were like, what are they doing? They just left Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. 7 B-2s now are just, they're headed west and they're going to Guam. Are we going to bomb Japan? And everybody was paying attention to that. It was brilliant strategy, because the others were flying east. Now, just before the B-2s began their bombing run, dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles were fired from U.S. submarines. They targeted nuclear sites at Nance and the other nuclear sites just a few minutes ahead of the bombers. They cleared the Iranian skies of enemy aircraft, although we didn't see any enemy aircraft. They didn't jam anything. I mean, it was like their military didn't exist. Now, the B-2s swept in, and they dropped these bunker busters. They're called MOPs. I think it's massive ordnance penetrators. They're bunker buster bombs. They are worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. They are about the size of, I think, an F-16. They're enormous. And they are one of the more precision bombs that we have. And they were made specifically for Fordo. They're made specifically. They were designed for this run. I spoke to some people who have been around the B-2 program, shall we say. And they said for 15 years they have been training for this very run. For 15 years, they have, in fact, I think it's at White Sands, we built a replica of this nuclear plant. And, underground, because we needed to see how far these bunker busters, could they actually penetrate and close that nuclear facility down. So we have been running this practice run For 15 plus years. We have been very, very serious about it. Again, when everybody said, only the United States could do this, that's because we built this bomb for this run. And we have been rehearsing it over and over and over and over again. So finally, the president gave the go. Now, these bombs are so sophisticated that, if they're being jammed and somebody is trying to screw with the GPS, it doesn't need GPS. It has a backup system that's coming from the plane that can't be jammed. And it's running two systems because this bomb has to be accurate enough to go down a shaft. If you saw a Top Gun, it's almost this without the steep dive and then the mass acceleration and pull up at the end. It's exactly like what you saw in Top Gun. They had a shaft that was about a 10-foot square. And they needed, from 50,000 feet, they needed to drop these bunker busters down that shaft. Now, I have been told that this bunker buster is so accurate, it can hit the top of a soda can from 50,000 feet. So we dropped the missiles, 14 of these bunker busters, all sites connected to Iran's nuclear program, presumed to be destroyed. If you look at the maps before and after, the satellite imagery, it looks pretty bad. I don't know what I'm looking at, but I talked to some people who do know what they're looking at, and they said it looks like it's totally destroyed. But we have to have somebody down on the ground to actually verify, and I would imagine those are the Israelis that are doing that. So now that is what's happening on the ground, over the weekend, past, present. And now let's look at the future, because this leaves us with massive questions. What comes next? What does all of this mean? All right, Gil there here in just a second. First, let me tell you about our sponsor this half hour. It's the Byrna Launcher. Let's play a game of what if. What if you're walking the dogs and somebody decides you look like easy pickings? You're in a parking lot at night. You're the only person around, and there's one other person that is kind of, in the shadows, not giving you a really good feeling. What if somebody breaks into your home? You have seconds to act. What if you are driving down the road and you run into a protest and they're blocking your car and they won't leave you alone? What do you do? Well, may I suggest the Byrna Launcher? It is non-lethal. It's a launcher that fires powerful pepper and tear gas and kinetic rounds. It's strong enough to stop an attacker, but without the life and death finality of a firearm. It is legal in, I think, every state without a permit. It looks and feels like a real handgun because in a crisis, confidence really matters. It's a compact model now that they have out, and they're really good, designed for easy carry. It can fit in your glove box, your purse, your backpack, nightstand, anything. You don't have to choose between doing nothing and going nuclear. Byrna gives you a third option: powerful, safe, non-lethal protection when it counts. Go to select Sportsman Warehouse stores to find a live demonstration. Byrna retail stores and authorized premier dealers. It's Byrna, BYRNA.com, Byrna.com. 10 seconds, station ID. Okay, so now let's look at what all of this means. Hopefully this is a one-and-done strike like it was when President Trump took out Soleimani during his first term. There is an opportunity to get more involved, and I hope we don't take it, and I hope Iran doesn't push us into that. What we cannot have is another prolonged military fiasco in the Middle East. We cannot have American boots on the ground. And I know President Trump, and I know he doesn't want that either. Now, the question is, what is Iran going to do? Will they begin targeting U.S. forces on the ground all over the Middle East? Will the Iranian-backed terrorists begin attacking us right here in the U.S.? And boy, do we have some information on that. Also, Iran has long held the Straits of Hormuz. They have the threat of closing all oil traffic. That's a big ace up their sleeve. Is that next? We know that the supreme leader, the religious leader, called for it this weekend. The Supreme Council has to vote on it. We should know today. Iran's parliament voted successfully to do that. It's the first step. You just need the go order now from the Supreme Council and the Ayatollah himself. If Iran chooses to do this, we will see a spike in our oil prices somewhere between $120 and $150 a barrel. It could be as high as $200 a barrel. So you know the '08 collapse was brought on. The final straw was $130 a barrel, $130 per barrel oil. The entire world, the Western economy, and actually the whole world's economy is built on about $120 a barrel. And anything over that, especially sustained, the whole thing collapses. It's a house of cards. So this would be a very, very bad knockout punch. The global economy already held by chewing gum and duct tape. What would happen with $150 barrel of oil? Nothing really good. Now, the regime, could it crumble and fall apart, and will the people rise up? Or will it go like Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya? It could be a success. The polls overthrew the communists, and that was great. But we now know today the religious police are everywhere on the streets now. These are some of the most brutal police forces out there. Hundreds have already been arrested. They're told to stay in their house. It's like you were living in California during COVID, except worse. Every car on the street is being checked. Every phone is being monitored. And over the weekend, at least 100 religious dissidents have already been executed, called spies for Israel. The U.S. Embassy in Qatar has issued an emergency shelter in place for all Americans living there amid the tensions. The alert was issued, quote, out of an abundance of caution, according to the embassy. There is a potential for demonstrations against U.S. citizens and interests abroad. The Department of State advises U.S. citizens worldwide to exercise increased caution. China now is condemning the U.S., as is Russia, in one of the more disturbing developments. I read this morning that one of the top officials from Iran is going to Russia today to meet with Putin. That means their alliance is not being deterred. But, for those who do believe in Bible prophecy, that's bound to happen because they are the Gog and Magog of the book of Revelation. So our past, our present, and our future is complicated. What happens in the coming days, the weeks and months is even more complicated, and it will either be an amazing success or lead us toward a very dark future. But anybody who wants to blame Donald Trump, you can blame every president since 2000, and actually before that, I think Bill Clinton was saying it, as was almost every single serious candidate for president. They have always said that they would never allow Iran to get a nuclear bomb. President Trump is just the first one to not send him a pallet of cash to try to bribe them. This was decisive, bold, and courageous action. Now let's prepare for fire and pray for peace.
This is Glenn Beck.
Now, I don't know if you've seen, but the price of oil is up another, $7 this morning just on the threat of the Straits of Hormuz. That's only a 2-mile stretch where a tanker can get through that's easily mined, and, it's going to be trouble if that happens. Your dollar is going to take a real hit, especially if that happens. Please, the same crowd that told you inflation was transitory is now telling you that everything is fine. Lean into the dip. Don't worry about the national debt. Just keep your money in the system. Hope the system doesn't bite back. Well, there's another plan, because that's you rolling the dice, and the house always wins on that one. May I suggest, if you see the storm that is on the horizon, please bring yourself a little peace of mind. Roll some of your money into physical gold or silver, into an existing IRA or 401k, tax deferred. This isn't about fear. It's about wisdom, seeing the storm coming and hoping that you're wrong, but taking the steps to be prepared. Get their $4,200 gold report at 800-957-GOLD. 800-957-GOLD. Lear Capital, do it now.
Head over to glennbeck.com. Get the free email newsletter. Sign up now. glennbeck.com.
You know, we are entering such difficult times, and I'm going to try to do something different than what I would normally do. I don't normally try to just throw bloody red meat at the audience. I always try to, but I am on this particular front, and from here on out, I want to try to be somebody that you could listen to, that is not going to just give you one side. It's not because I don't have an opinion. My opinion is I'm actually glad we did this. I am worried what the response is going to be, but this may have been one of the last chances to do it. If they ever did get a bomb, the world would be a much, much scarier place. And this is something that every president has said they were going to do. For instance, let me take this on real quick. The whole thing about the War Powers Act. Does the president have the right to do this? Well, no. According to the Constitution, back in the old-timey days when we followed it, no, not really. However, he does have the right to make moves, and if he doesn't go to Congress, and he tries to get us roped into a war, if any president does, the Congress within 30 days can then cut off all of the money and say, Mr. President, I'm sorry, you're pulling everybody home. So there is that, and that is in the Constitution. The problem is that every single president, I think since maybe Eisenhower, definitely the Kennedy administration, they have just been saying this is limited. This isn't war, so we don't need to go to you and get a war act. We don't need to declare war. When was the last time you ever heard us declare war? We had a war on terror, but what does that even mean? We don't do that anymore, and that's the problem. The president can say, and every single one of them have said, no, this is just a limited strike. Is this a limited strike? Yes. Could it turn into war? Yes. But when you look at Iran, and again, you got to be really, I want to be very clear, and it's hard to be because people only hear what they want to hear. I am glad that we did this. I don't know if I would have had the guts as president to do it. And I would have been praying all the time on my knees, begging the Lord, am I being duped here by the deep state? What is happening? But I happen to believe that Iran is a threat to the United States. It has killed more people, more Americans than I think any other country in the last, 30 years. They're the only ones that are shouting every time they meet, death to America, death to Israel, and they mean it. They killed all kinds of people when we were fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq, and we always look the other way, and then we always say we're going to do something about it, and we never do. We have been preparing. One of the things that really sharpened me on this was talking to somebody in the B2 program, somebody who had been with the B2 program for a very long time, was, instrumental in the B2 program and had firsthand knowledge. And he had said they had been training for 15 years plus specifically for this run. So this is not a Donald Trump thing. This has been something that we invented this bomb, the MOP. We invented this bomb for the Fordo plant. When the world said, when Trump said, no, nobody else in the world could pull this off, that's true. We invented this bomb, and we did dry runs in the middle of our desert where we built a replica underneath the ground to see if this bomb could actually destroy Fordo. So this has been well planned for a very, very long time, and it was really well executed. But, what comes from this now, I'm not really sure. Stu is with us. Jason Buttrill is with us. He is, our head researcher and head writer for the TV program. Also military expert, was in military intelligence. And welcome both Stu and Jason.
Howdy, sir.
So what is your take on this, Jason? What is coming next?
I said last week on the program with you that I would have given the same advice to President Trump if I would have been on his staff.
Do it.
I think that it was the right thing to do. I'm nervous, definitely, as you stated, on what comes next. My hope is that everything that we feared about Iran's capabilities has been overblown, or we were just we maybe overly cautious. I know that there is a significant, and when I was in the military and looking at these things, significant ways that they could cause pain outside of conventional, attacks. So you mentioned at the top of the hour, the Straits of Hormuz. That's a very real threat.
That's really dangerous.
Really
it's only
dangerous.
It's a 2-mile trench, if you will, where the oil tankers can come in and out to get all that oil. And 2 miles, man, you can mine that. You can do all kinds of stuff from the shores. You got the little speed boats with Haji on it. I mean, it's really dangerous. And if they do that, that could be real trouble unless the world unites against them.
Right. And that will bring the international community in. And this is the flip side of some people would say, okay, well, they're obviously going to shut down the Straits. Well, this is the other side of that. If they do that, this is the last thing they do before probably the regime crumbles, because you're going to bring China into the mix on this. China receives half of their oil from the Straits of Hormuz. Half. 90% of their oil of Iran's exports already go to China. So a significant amount of China's lifeblood is coming from this area. And they're not going to sit around and watch this.
So I had an advisor yesterday tell me that one of the things, and it took me a minute to get my arms around it, he said, I would be very, very disturbed if suddenly any of the leadership went off to Russia and Russia was taking them in. And I misunderstood, and I was like, I thought that would be a good thing because it would show that they're collapsing. And he said, no. If they are flying over there to strengthen their relationship, if Russia starts flying these guys in and is giving them advice, that means that Russia is not distancing themselves, and that is happening today. And I think that is worrisome, especially since Iran was using Syria to make, drones. I mean, they are, we saw what happened to Russia with the drones in Ukraine. We saw what Israel did with drones. That is one of Iran's big things, is making those drones. Are those drones positioned anywhere? And will Russia back them on things? This is really, really scary because war is changing dramatically.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And a good portion of Russia's drones were coming from Iran that they were using in Ukraine. I've been watching these developments pretty closely on what's happening between Russia and Iran. Putin came out and said last week that, we've got a military pact with them, but we're going to hold off. I don't think Russia is going to be too keen to get too involved in this. The foreign minister is there today from Iran and Russia, but Vladimir Putin's spokesman Peskov said, we're fully ready to help them out, but they just have to be very clear and accurate on what they're asking for. Which to me says we're not getting involved militarily. We might be able to offer you a discount code at Burger King or something like that. But beyond that, just slow down there, cowboy.
That would be good. That would be very, very good. If China and Russia stay on the sidelines, that's a very good thing. Stu?
My chosen solution for this problem was to walk up to some Israeli pilots and say, hey, we left the keys in that B-2 bomber. Don't you take it. I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be gone in the bathroom for about 75 hours. That was my choice. And I am very concerned, I hope you guys are as well, as what Iran will do without that 1.8% of their power generation that they get from nuclear power. It's such a key program that they really needed to have for no other reason than energy generation. I mean, look, I think we can't lose sight of them, Iran, as a threat, and the country, the government that has killed more Americans in the past 15 years than any other. This is not like some innocuous. This is not outer Mongolia we're talking about. These people have killed a lot of our countrymen, and it's something that is important. And I think we've had this idea, like, I think you may have said this, Glenn, last week, so I might be stealing it from you. But I don't think we would have done this if Israel hadn't done what they have done, right? Like, we wouldn't, I don't think, have been in there saying, okay, well, here we go. We're flying over there today on a Tuesday for no reason. I think the fact, though, that Israel has already gone this far, they've already taken out the air defenses, they've already done so much. The fact that we can step in with a very limited type of attack that we've done in many other countries and have not turned into a massive war. We've been doing this in Yemen. We've been doing this in Syria. I mean, it's different. I understand. But, like, there's no reason this needs to turn into us being sucked into a 20-year Middle East war. And I think this is the type of president who can maintain that line. He did it with Soleimani. We had the same sorts of warnings from the media that we were going to be sucked into this never-ending war with Iran after Soleimani, and that did not occur. And I think and hope the president wants to hold that line, and if we can get some really good outcomes, even if it's just a delay on their nuclear program for 6 months or a year or 2 years or 5 years, I think it's worthwhile. It's not crazy to worry about the things that some are worried about when it comes to getting us sucked into this type of situation. But I think when you weigh the positives and negatives here, I think it was the right move.
Yeah, and I don't think that President Trump is somebody that is going to be sucked in by the deep state. I just don't believe that. He hates war. And the one thing he really likes is Raising Cane. General Raising Cane. Yeah. That guy, he believes this endless war stuff is nonsense. It's just bloodthirsty, and he hates it as well. And that's who is in charge here. General Kane is this no-nonsense guy, and like, there's no reason we wait and wait and wait and wait, and it takes us years and years. We can get this done right now. And he was the guy who planned all of this. And look at how successful this was. I mean, it is the most successful strike that we've ever had, and partly due to Israel, because there was not a single plane that came off the ground, and that's a pretty big air force that Iran has.
Yeah, how sure of that are you, that it's the most successful? Like, I mean, I know that's what obviously the government is saying, and I hope it's true.
Well, I would say that.
Do we know that yet?
Let's just qualify it with just this. Forget about did they get everything in there, okay? Let's just look at, was anybody hurt? Did we have to fight anything else? What was the collateral damage on the ground? We think it was very limited. There was no leaks in this. I mean, that's pissing Congress off, but I wouldn't have told them either, quite honestly. Can't trust them. You're out with the people who are drumming and lighting. You got drums in the streets, Palestinian flags, and you're setting our cities on fire. I'm not going to tell you what we're doing, overnight. It was perfectly executed. Now, we won't know whether it was truly obliterated, until we have somebody down on the ground. But I think that intel is going to have to come from Iran, and we'll only know that in time. All right, I got to take a quick break, and then Jason, I know you wanted to jump in. We'll get more from you here in just a second. First, there's something great about a cut of meat that makes everything feel just a little more civilized. You're not just sitting down to dinner. It's a ritual, a reason to slow down, light the grill, gather the family, cook something that's worth eating. Good Ranchers gets that. They source their meat from family farms right here in America. No mystery meat from God only knows where. No imported garbage wrapped in plastic and stamped with a flag. Just real, honest American beef, chicken, and seafood delivered right to your door. You pick the box. They pack it with dry ice, and they send it fast. I'm talking about steaks that actually taste like steaks, chicken that doesn't shrink into a dry little cutlet, and seasonal specials that will make you want to invite the neighbors over. Right now, when you subscribe to any Good Ranchers box, you're going to get free meat for life. Choose from Wagyu burgers, bacon, chicken wings, or hot dogs, free in every box for the life of your subscription. And when you use the code BECK at checkout, you're going to get an extra $40 off your first box. It's goodranchers.com, code BECK. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered.
More Glenn Beck coming up next.
If you've ever taken a sip of coffee and wondered, did someone forget to actually roast the beans? Well, you're not alone. Most of the big corporate brands treat coffee like a commodity. You kind of burn through it, water it down, and then you wrap it in a rainbow flag and assume everyone's going to love it. But Blackout Coffee is a different breed. It's roasted right here in the U.S. in small batches by a team of patriots who care about two things, flavor and freedom. Every bag is bold, smooth, and strong, not unlike the values they stand for. And this isn't your average grocery store sludge. This is the kind of coffee that actually wakes you up. And I'm not talking about just caffeine. Blackout Coffee also supports veterans, active duty military, first responders. And they're not just talking about standing for American values. They're actually doing it with every single cup. So if you're tired of funding companies that mock your beliefs while delivering bland coffee, I've got news for you. You can switch to Blackout and solve all those problems all at once. You'll taste the difference, and you'll know exactly where your money is going. It's time to drink really good coffee from a really good company. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/blaze. Blackoutcoffee.com/blaze. Use the promo code BLAZE. You'll get 20% off your first order. It's blackoutcoffee.com/blaze. Promo code is BLAZE. Start each day with coffee that stands for something meaningful. It's blackoutcoffee.com/blaze. Get a good cup this morning. blackoutcoffee.com/blaze.
Welcome to the Glenn Beck Program. Jason Buttrill is with us. He is our military analyst. Welcome to the program. Jason, you were going to say before we wrap this hour up?
Yeah, I'm just really curious about where this goes from here. And first off, my assessment on just if those sites are destroyed, I absolutely think they are destroyed with the ordnance that was dropped, and just the preliminary satellite imagery. It looks like they are taken out, which leads me into my next point is this whole thing has been very, very, I guess, regular. There's been a lot of brilliant military moves, subterfuge, things like that, but it's been very conventional. Israel used their military to expertly take out anti-air. The ways for Iran to respond and hit Israel, that's still ongoing. It was all set up perfectly for our strike, and our strike took out the intended reason for this entire thing, which was the nuclear sites. Now I'm curious where they go from here, because that is done. So do they stop, or do they keep going? I'm seeing reports, maybe we can get to later, that things are still progressing and they're still hitting certain things. So where does this go? I think it's far from over.
Well, on that happy note, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a second with more. We've got a lot on the plate today. We're going to cover all of it and take your phone calls. 888-727-BECK. Hello, America. It's Monday.
This is Glenn Beck.